Hello and welcome. So I said this week was going to be back to a little bit more financial modeling basics, and it doesn't get more classic financial modeling than this. We're going to be looking at a refinance of a debt facility. And there's one thing that's quite interesting about this case, and it's one of the big differences between a typical kind of competition case like ModelOff or FMWC and real world, is the proportion of time that you spend building something from scratch, as opposed to modifying an existing thing, or more specifically, modifying something that somebody else made. Most of the models in these cases get built from scratch, but in the real world, a lot of the time you got to deal with something, refreshing something that you built a while ago or something that somebody else built a while ago. And that's what we're doing in this case. So let me take you through the setup. So you work for a company, you've got an existing senior debt facility due to be refinanced. You've already got an annual financial model from January 2015 through December 2039. Forecast the project's cash flows, including senior debt, and you've been asked to update it to include the refinancing. So here are the details of the refinancing. One single drawdown at the end of 2016, pay a 2% fee on the amount drawn, and the amount drawn will be the sum of the existing balance of the old senior debt at the time of the repayment and the arrangement fee amount. Drawdown is used to pay the arrangement fee and repay the existing debt. Repayments are made at the end of each calendar year, except for the final year when it's made on the final repayment date, which is the middle of the year. And the repayment amount in year N is proportional to the number of days in the year that the debt is active for. Repayment starts from 2017. So you draw at the end of 2016, start repaying in 2017. Interest rate is 6% a year on an actual 365 basis. And then this is just kind of talking through how it should get accounted for. So interest hits the P&L, as you would expect. The arrangement fee is going to get amortized, so it's going to be held as an asset on the balance sheet and then amortized through the P&L in proportion to the number of days in each year that the debt is active for, again, because in the last year it's only active for half a year. And on the cash flow statement, it gets incorporated after the project cash flow line and feeds into the dividend calculation. And then in part B, we're going to do some debt service coverage ratio calculations and then do some debt sculpting, but I'll talk more about that when we get to it. So let's dive on into the model. I guess first thing, I've mentioned this before with some of these models. These are obviously built by and for people working on desktops and large screens. And it's like there's no limit to the amount of space in the world. So the first thing I'm going to do is just tighten it up a little bit so that I can actually use it. So I'm going to take these headers, move it over here. Then we've got a bunch of empty columns here. All those three are empty, so I'm just going to delete them. Then let's see, I think there's some, yeah, there's a check in there. So we'll just shrink that one. And then this one can probably get somewhat smaller as well. And this one is empty and that can go away. And now I've still got about half my screen taken up with this stuff, but that's better than 100% of my screen, and that's good enough for now. You probably saw what was happening, but I grabbed all three of those in group mode so that 2015 remains column I across all three of them. That consistency is helpful. Okay, so that one is debt service coverage ratio. That one can get a little bit wider. So first thing I'm going to do, I don't know if this is best practice or not, but I'm just going to do it here on the Assumptions tab because that seems more natural to me. So I'm going to calculate my drawdown amount. And that is going to be a mix of my refinance amount and my arrangement fee. And those are all going to be dollars. So my refinance amount, my senior debt starts off at 10 million and we repay $500,000 a year. So I could just say, this minus the sum of these, but slightly better to make it flexible in case the date changes. So I'm going to say minus sum ifs. So I want to sum all the scheduled repayments where the scheduled repayment date is less than or equal to the refinancing date. And so that way, if we wanted to say, actually, no, let's refinance a year later, no problem. It's going to be $500,000 less to refinance, all good. So then the arrangement fee, now you might kind of naively think, well, refinancing 9 million and a 2% arrangement fee, so there it is. But now you think about the total drawdown amount. Well, the arrangement fee is supposed to be 2% of the total drawdown amount. So now that times 2%, suddenly it's gotten larger. And you could, do that and keep doing that until it works itself out. But if you want to be a little more kind of logical about it, you can say, well, this is 2% of the total, and these two together make the total. So this is obviously going to be 98% of the total. This is your 2%. So we can say the total is going to be this divided by 98%, which is in other words 1 minus the arrangement fee amount. And then the arrangement fee is just going to be that times the 2%. Okay, so then we get it without any circularity or copy value paste or any funny business. Okay, now a big part of when you inherit and want to rearrange a model is thinking about what's the least amount of rewiring you're going to have to do. So this was just senior debt original. I'm going to make this be senior debt all, and I'm just going to indent these a little bit. I'm going to have this be original debt. Then I'm going to want to have another section down here for the refi debt. And then somewhere further down again, I want to have a debt summary. Now, the thing to think about here is the logical thing would be to say, okay, this is the original debt. So then we'll make a new section, which is the refi debt, and then we'll make a new section, which is the debt summary, and put them together. But we're starting off with a working model, remember. So these repayments, these closing balances, these interest payments are all correctly plumbed into the three-statement model over here already. So really what I'd like to do is have all these cells end up as the debt summary, and then just update them to reflect the refi debt plus the original debt. So I'd like all these cells to end up down here, but I'd also like all these calculations, or a copy of all these calculations, to end up here. So a couple of you could say, first thing I'm going to do is just hide everything past the end of the thing, and I'll do that over here as well because it just makes it a lot easier to navigate around. So what you could say is I'm going to cut this all, paste it down here. Oops, I need a little more space. So you can cut that, paste it down here, and then you've got all your cells where they need to be. So here's the cell that links through to the balance sheet, here's the cell that links through to the P&L, and this one links through to cash flow, and so on. And then you could take this and make a copy of it up here to reproduce the original. But now what you'll see is, some of these, the internal links, like this pointing to that, for example, still work, but the links out to another sheet don't work because this was pointing at row 38, but now this is pointing at row 21. There's not that many, there's really only kind of 2 places to fix it. So in this case, you're probably as fast to just make that a 38 and copy across, and then make this whatever it needs to be, 36. And then you're basically back. But suppose you had something a bit more complex. How could you, what are you doing? There we go. How can you do it without having to manually change individual rows? Well, here's one option. You can say, first I'll make a copy of this, and I'll put it down here, just somewhere out of the way. Now, as you can see, that's pointing to the wrong row, so this has not reproduced those calculations, but that's fine. That's not what it's supposed to do. We're just putting a copy out of the way. Then we're going to cut this, move it down here. So now we've got a full set of the calculations, which is not relevant, but we've also got the cells that are linked to on the 3-statement summary are all down here. And we've got our copy here, which is not pointing to the right cells. But now, if I take this and copy it back up to the original location, now these things are again pointing to the correct row in the input. And that's without us having to do any kind of shuffling around. So again, here there's only really 2 formulas pointing externally, so it would be easy enough to just change those 2. But if you had something more complex than this method, where you make one copy, then cut and move it, and then put the copy the copy back in, will get you what you need. Okay, so now we're going to have the refi debt. So here, let's just go, for simplicity, I'm just going to have the same structure in all of them. So I'm going to have add drawdown less early repayment. And then do the same thing down here. And I have enough space for it. No, I have not. Okay, another couple of rows. Okay, so now this time this one's going to start off as 0. Now here I don't have any drawdown, so I can just leave that blank. But my early repayment is going to be if this equals the refi date, then it's going to be minus I54 minus I56. All right, otherwise 0. So then that repays it there. We've got to expand this sum to pick the new section up. And now this formula is just pointing to the repayment schedule, but if you're ever going to have early repayments, then you need to make it the smaller of the repayment schedule and what is available to be repaid. And so now we move across, and that's all zeroed out and fine and happy. The interest already works, so that's all good. So now here, the drawdown is going to be if this equals this, then this, otherwise 0. Copy that across. Now we've got the loan coming alive. The early repayment, we don't have any, so I'll just ignore that. But just completeness, fix the formula. Then the regular repayment is not going to be pointing to the input sheet. So let's just add in an extra little bit of supporting calc here. So first we'll have a refi debt active question mark. We'll just have a simple flag. And that's going to be equals so that greater than the refi date times I7, which is the closing date, less than, greater than, less than, what am I doing? I know, I6, less than or equal to this. So let's see, that says it's active until 2036, which it is. Good. Then I'm going to say active days, and that's going to be if this, then the min of end of the period and maturity date minus the start of the period, which is I6, plus 1, otherwise 0. So then we have 365 days most years, 366 in a leap year, and 182 in the last year because the debt is repaid partway through the year. Good. Okay, so now that we have that, we can do our scheduled repayments, and that's just going to be if we're in here, then let's say it's the opening balance. Opening balance times days in this year divided by the remaining days until maturity. So that is the opening balance times days in this year divided by the sum of the days out to the end. We'll put $1 on that to lock it. And if we're not in the repayment period, then 0. And oh yeah, it would help to have a minus sign since it is a debt repayment. And that, sure enough, clears the debt by the end, which is exactly what we want. Then the interest rate is going to be 6%, and it's on an actual over 365. So we're going to say opening balance times actual days over, this model has an assumption cell for 365. That seems a little overwrought to me, but we'll do it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it would help if I multiplied by the interest rate times 6%. Lock, lock, lock. That looks a little bit more like it. Okay. So then we'll come down here to our summary and just copy these This is why it's helpful to have the sort of parallel structure across the 3 different bits, even though, you know, there's no early repayment on the refi debt and there's no drawdown on the pre-refi debt. But now that I've set it up that way, oops, then I can just make the formula for all of these just be this plus this. And we are good. Yes, we are good. Okay. And then we don't need an interest rate, but we do need total interest payment, and that is this plus this. And now the nice thing about this is, you know, these now pull everything together. So this cell and this cell. Oh, you know, I have a bad feeling I might have put repayments here when before it was here. I might need to rewire the repayments. Let's see. Yes, I do. So my senior debt principal repayments should be here. That's 86 instead of 87. But aside from that, I don't need to rewire, which is good. And my senior debt balance is here, and that's working. That's good. Now my balance sheet is not in balance because I need to add an asset for the arrangement fee amortization. So let's do that quickly. So sorry, this should be in. Arrangement fee amortization. And that is going to be, if we're in the payment period, then it's current days divided by all the days times the arrangement fee, otherwise 0. And that should add up to 183,673, which it does. Hooray. So then we're going to say arrangement fee. And that's going to be, let's put the amortization in first. Okay, so I guess while I'm sorting out my cash flow, I should do, so we'll say senior debt net drawdown and senior debt arrangement fee. So the net drawdown is going to be this plus this. So in other words, we net draw, the net increase in the debt is the amount of the arrangement fee, which is good. And then senior debt arrangement fee is just going to be if this equals this, then minus the amount of the arrangement fee, block, otherwise 0. And then, yes, that already is expanded to cover that, so that's all working. And then finally, we just need to come down here, add in the arrangement fee, and that is going to be if this equals this. So in other words, on the day the loan is drawn at the end of the year, we start off with the full balance, and any later than that, it's going to be the previous period, so that's G58 minus the amortization, which is here. I'm going to copy that across, so it starts off the full amount, ends up, does not make it all the way to 0. Oh, sorry, that's because I'm looking at 2014 here, so I should be pointing at column H. And now it ends up at 0, subject to some funky rounding. Yeah, 10 to the minus 11th, fine, I don't care. And then I just need to make sure that this is picking that up. And that still doesn't quite get us in balance. Why not? Oh, right, because I also have to add it in here. So senior debt arrangement fee amortization. That is a mouthful and a half. And that is equals minus, I'm in column I, so column I over here, boom. And then I need to make sure this is catching that, which right now it's not. And then with a bit of luck, yes, we're back in balance. Hooray. Okay, so now we should be good to answer the questions for part A. So I'll do Q&A. And what are the questions here? We've got from 6 down to 15. Okay, so sequence 10, 6. So question 6. What is the amount drawn for the refinancing debt? And that is this guy. And let's just get a number format here that we can work with. So 183673, which is D. Cool. Question 7. What is the refinance debt repayment amount December 2022? Okay. Sorry, is that debt repayment? So principal, I assume that means December of 22, which is here. 477.26, and that is F. Okay, question 8. What is the arrangement fee amortization in 2024? Arrangement fee amortization in 2024. I guess this is just checking you've got leap years working. 9440, which is F. Good. I wonder, does it accept? No, 9415. So this is actually trying to help you. If you were not accounting for leap years, then your answer would not be in here. I was wondering if it would be tricky and have that be an answer option as well. Anyway, total interest paid over the refinancing is going to be the sum of, we're going to go over here, we're going to split out interest, this one, 5647226, which is A. Okay, what was the dividend in 2034? Dividend is here, 2034. Where the heck are my labels? What on earth is going on here? Try that again. There we go, 2034 dividend. 2372326. Hooray, that's E. Question 11. Net assets on the balance sheet, 31st December 2020. Balance sheet, net assets 2020 is here. 5598333. That's A. Oops, A. Okay, now we're going to calculate. Okay, so calculate debt service coverage. So the numerator is the project cash flow apportioned for the number of days in the year that fall within the term of the refi debt, and the denominator is interest plus principal payments. So, let's see. So, DSCR calcs. So first we'll say project cash flow prorated. Say total debt service, and then we'll say DSCR. So here we're going to say if we're in the zone, then we want 365, sorry, we want active days over total days in the year, which is that minus that plus 1 times project cash flow for the same period, which is here, otherwise 0. So here we get all the project cash flow, which is 2 million, and by the time we get over here, we just get half of it for the last period. All good. Then we want to say if, we don't need to say if anything, because it's 0 outside that range anyway. So it's just going to be the repayments, put a minus sign on it to make it positive, plus the interest from here. Then DSCR is going to be if we're in the zone, then it's going to be that over that. Otherwise, let's say otherwise NA, so that we can do averages and mins and things without having to worry. Okay, so then min, I think we want the minimum and the average. Okay, the minimum and average, yes. So min DSCR, average DSCR. Average. Okay, so now question 12 was something about DSCR, the average DSCR prior to amending the repayment mechanism. 4 decimal places. Okay, 36162. That's A. Okay, good. Question 13. Oh yes, I know. We've got to change some things here. So you should answer question 12 before proceeding. So you've got a higher DSCR than the banks require. They're willing to lend money to the project as long as DSCR remains at or above 1.8. You could afford to make larger repayments, and therefore the initial drawdown could have been larger. You want to amend the model so that as much debt is borrowed as possible, given the constraint that DSCR can never be below 1.8. Any excess amount drawn over and above the amount needed to repay the existing senior debt and pay the arrangement fee should be distributed immediately to shareholders. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is well, I'm going to add a flag here, which is debt sculpting, question mark. Let's make that true false. Start off at false because I want to leave everything as it is for now. So in the event that we borrow more, I think it says, yes, any excess amount drawn over and above the amount needed to repay the debt facility and pay the arrangement fee should be distributed immediately to shareholders. So to shareholders, and that's going to be total amount minus refinance minus the arrangement fee. It's currently 0, and again, that should be a, yes, 10 to the minus 10, so basically 0. So now, how do we figure out, well, a couple of options. You could, well, let's do the bit we have to do first anyway. So max debt service. And that is going to be, if we are in the zone, then it's going to be the total project cash flows divided by the minimum debt service coverage lock. Otherwise, it's, well, 0 and A, it doesn't matter, I guess. So these are the amounts that we can afford to put toward debt servicing. So what we could do is basically do it a pretty manual way, change these principal payments to be debt service amount minus the interest payment, and then, you know, goal seek this number here back to 0 by changing the initial drawdown amount. But I prefer to be you know, the challenge with doing anything with goal seek is that if we say, okay, wait, no, we don't want to pull the debt, we don't want to refinance until 2017, then that completely breaks everything because some of your numbers are manual. There is a way to do it non-manually. I'm going to show you that. Obviously, if you need to, then you can goal seek, but if you can do it a better way, then do. So I've talked before about sizing mortgage payments with variable factors by, you know, first principles wise, using a discounting rate. You can do the same thing to convert a set of payments into what's the maximum initial drawdown. So what's the idea? The idea is we'll have a PV factor. Sorry, that's not that. That is X. And we're going to say if this is drawdown date, then that's 1. Otherwise, it is the previous value, which is H89 here, divided by 1 plus, so basically, you know, discount for another period, so divided by 1 plus 6% times the days in the period, which is this guy, I-77, divided by 365. Just gonna do this. So now this is telling us the present value after factoring in the kind of interest payments on this loan of $1 here is whatever, 94 cents, $1 here is 89 cents, $1 here is 84 cents, which means that the present value of all these future payments is just the sum product of these with those, and the present value of all the future payments is the greatest amount that you can borrow. So max, or let's say sculpted drawdown. That's going to be some product of these with these. 15,249,133. So now we're just going to make this be if sculpting is true, then we're going to draw down the maximum amount as calculated here. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it as what it was before. And then, well, let's just turn it on. There's other things to update, but it'll become apparent in a minute what else we need to change. So now you can see we're borrowing much more. That stays the same. That goes up because it's 2% of the full amount being borrowed, and the rest goes to shareholders. All good. Now what we should see is debt service coverage ratio at 1.8 all along. We don't. The reason we don't is because we're still using the old repayment mechanism, which is repay pro rata each period. But what we need to do is repay according to the debt sculpting. So here, this is just to check that we're in the period, so we still need that. But inside that, we're going to say if debt sculpting is true, then we're going to want the maximum debt service, which is this guy here, K88, minus K88, and then add back the interest, which is here, K74. Otherwise, it's all that other stuff. Close the if. And sure enough, that does clear the debt, albeit on a different schedule. And now what we should find is, yes, hooray, 1.8 all the way along. So our minimum and average debt service coverage ratios are both 1.8. Okay, so now, question 13. What is the target debt service amount on the 30th of June 2036? Sorry, wrong one. Back to the workings tab. Max debt service. 837,436. Yes, yes, yes. F. Oops, F. Question 14. If the amount drawn for the refinancing debt in Part B is expressed rounded to the nearest dollar, what are the final 3 digits? So it's just mod of this thing, 1,000. The final 3 digits, 133, which is B. And question 15. What is the dividend made to the shareholders? So let me just check, but I think the way we've set this up, this is already accounted for. So there's a net drawdown here, and the dividends are already basically set up to pay out all the cash that you have available, so that your cash balance keeps, cash balance keeps ending up at 0. So I think that's already all factored in. So it's just this 6819151 rounded to the nearest 1,000. Fine. So I say round, comma, -3, 6819. That's B. And let's just quickly check. DFF AEAA FBB. DFF AEAA FBB. Hooray! And I'm just a hair under the, I think this one is a target 35 minutes. Yes, hooray. All right, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. See you next time.